Behind virtually every pizza delivered from America's leading restaurant chains operates a manufacturer working almost entirely beyond public recognition. This singular enterprise dominates a substantial segment of the mozzarella cheese sector, supplying the essential ingredient for billions of dollars in annual pizza revenue. Following more than 100 years manufacturing cheese in California's fertile agricultural regions, this industrial titan is transferring operations to Texas, relocating hundreds of well-compensated manufacturing positions. What prompted this strategic transformation, and what insights does it offer about the evolving landscape of American food manufacturing? Leprino Foods transforms approximately 1 billion pounds of mozzarella each year, establishing itself as the primary supplier to prominent pizza chains including Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's. While generating roughly $3 billion in annual revenue, the corporation maintains such minimal public visibility that most consumers remain entirely unaware of its existence. There are no branded packages available in supermarkets and no company logos displayed on restaurant menus. The business functions as what industry analysts describe as an invisible supplier, its products reaching millions of American households without any direct brand recognition whatsoever. This manufacturing approach has enabled Leprino to construct an expansive production infrastructure spanning facilities in Colorado, New Mexico, Michigan, New York, and previously 2 significant operations in California's Central Valley. The company focuses on producing cheese designed for specific industrial applications, consistent melting properties, predictable stretch characteristics, and uniform quality across enormous production volumes. These technical requirements carry substantial weight in a domestic pizza market worth approximately $45 billion annually, where restaurant chains rely on ingredient consistency to maintain standardized offerings across thousands of locations nationwide. The firm's control over these supply chains means that operational choices made at Leprino can influence restaurant pricing structures, dairy farming agreements, and regional employment trends across numerous states. Comprehending how this degree of market dominance emerged requires examining the company's history and the technological breakthroughs that powered its growth. The groundwork for this business dynasty started humbly in 1959 when James Leprino began manufacturing cheese in his family's Denver basement. Operating with an initial capital investment of slightly over $600, he entered the industry at a time when pizza consumption was starting to spread beyond Italian-American neighborhoods into mainstream American culture. The timing proved advantageous, but achievement demanded more than simply favorable market circumstances. What separated Leprino's venture from rivals was an unwavering emphasis on production efficiency. Throughout the 1970s, the company engineered proprietary manufacturing techniques in partnership with Wisconsin dairy specialist Lester Kielsmeyer. Their most remarkable accomplishment was developing a same-day production process capable of converting raw milk into finished packaged mozzarella in fewer than 4 hours. This innovation, safeguarded by a growing collection of patents that ultimately surpassed 50 individual filings, provided the company with a considerable competitive edge. The technical advancements encompassed multiple production stages, from accelerated acidification methods to automated slicing and packaging mechanisms. These innovations allowed Leprino to expand operations far beyond conventional cheese manufacturing while preserving the specific melting and stretching characteristics that fast food operations demanded. By the time business publications began featuring James Leprino during the 1980s and 1990s, industry observers estimated his personal fortune at over $2 billion, all constructed on supplying an ingredient that most pizza consumers never considered. That foundation of technical proficiency and manufacturing efficiency now influences how the company addresses regional cost variations and infrastructure challenges. The choice to construct new capacity in Texas rather than modernize existing California facilities reflects calculations about where cheese production can function most economically in today's business climate. In January 2025, Leprino Foods officially opened a new manufacturing facility in Lubbock, Texas, representing an investment that eventually totaled approximately $1 billion. The plant was engineered to process more than 8 million pounds of milk daily, operating continuously with a workforce of 600 employees. Regional officials characterize the facility as one of the most significant industrial investments in the area's modern history, with an estimated economic impact of $10.6 billion for Texas over the next decade. The 850,000 square foot facility, constructed on 258 acres, required over 4 million work hours and employed 400 contractors daily during peak construction. The location offers specific logistical advantages that made it particularly attractive to company planners. More than 200 dairy farms in the surrounding South Plains region provide a steady milk supply, with approximately 200 trucks delivering milk daily to the facility. The plant's capacity allows it to convert that raw material into finished product at a scale that matches the company's existing facilities in other states. For the Lubbock regional economy, the impact is substantial and immediate. 600 manufacturing positions represent significant job creation in an area where food processing already plays an important economic role. These aren't temporary or seasonal positions, but permanent career opportunities with wages expected to meet or exceed local manufacturing standards, adding considerable payroll dollars to the community. Local officials describe this as the largest single private capital investment in Lubbock's history, marking the inception of a new industry sector for the city. The facility incorporates advanced sustainability features that distinguish it as Leprino's most environmentally conscious operation. These include advanced LED lighting with smart sensors, intelligent controllers on refrigeration systems to reduce electrical consumption, water capture and reuse systems throughout the facility, and heat recovery systems that capture equipment-generated heat for use elsewhere, reducing fuel consumption. According to plant officials, cutting-edge automation and instrumentation ensure world-class food safety standards, operational efficiency, and maintenance protocols. This expansion in Texas coincides with a starkly different announcement for long-standing facilities in California. Understanding what happens when production shifts from one state to another requires examining the direct consequences on workers and communities that lose these operations. In November 2024, Leprino Foods issued formal notifications to employees at its California facility, informing them of a pending closure. The Lemoore East plant, which had operated since 1910, would permanently shut down in early 2026. This closure would eliminate more than 368 manufacturing positions, with initial layoffs beginning in January 2025 and final closures extending through December 2026. For the Central Valley community where this plant operated, the announcement carried enormous weight. Dave Costa, a former employee whose father hauled milk cans to the facility in the 1950s and who himself worked there for 35 years, characterized the Lemoore plant as offering some of the highest compensated factory work available in the valley. These weren't entry-level positions, but career jobs that had supported families across multiple generations. His own son-in-law currently works at Leprino's West Lemoore facility, which continues operations. The plant ran around the clock, processing millions of pounds of milk weekly and serving as a stable economic anchor in the local economy. As closure dates approach, the broader economic consequences come into clearer focus. Local businesses that depended on plant workers as customers face declining revenue streams. Municipal tax bases diminish as payroll taxes and property assessments decrease. Dairy farmers who supplied milk to this facility must renegotiate contracts or identify alternative buyers in an agricultural market already confronting its own financial pressures. The two Leprino facilities in Lemoore together process approximately 14 million pounds of milk daily, producing an average of 1.5 million pounds of mozzarella cheese and related products each day. The human dimension of these closures extends beyond employment figures. Workers in their 40s and 50s who constructed careers around this plant now confront the challenge of locating comparable positions in an area where manufacturing opportunities have contracted over recent decades. Some may need to relocate entirely, further weakening community connections that took years to establish. Costa expressed the sentiment shared by many. You work so hard all those years for your retirement, and then all of a sudden, they shut it down. Patricia Matthews, mayor of Lemoore, noted that the loss follows other recent manufacturing closures in the area, including a tomato processing plant and a grain mill. Each departure narrows the economic foundation that supports local services and employment. It was just kind of a shock that it was going to be closing, nothing that anyone expected. Matthews stated, adding that the impact on the community would be devastating. This outcome wasn't predetermined by market forces alone. It emerged from a specific set of policy choices and cost structures that made California manufacturing increasingly difficult to sustain. Examining those factors helps explain why a profitable company chose to invest in new capacity elsewhere rather than preserve existing operations. Leprino Foods pointed to several interconnected factors driving its decision to close the California plant rather than invest in modernization. The Lemoore East facility's age presented immediate challenges. Infrastructure more than a century old requires constant maintenance and eventual replacement of core systems. Updating this plant to current operational standards would have demanded substantial capital investment with uncertain financial returns. Beyond infrastructure considerations, the company cited California's broader business costs as a determining factor. The state maintains a corporate income tax rate of 8.84%, ranking among the highest in the nation. Texas, by contrast, imposes no corporate income tax whatsoever. For a business operating on the thin margins typical of food manufacturing, this difference affects profitability calculations significantly. Over the lifespan of a major facility, these tax variations accumulate to substantial sums that directly impact the bottom line. Various business climate rankings reflect these cost disparities systematically. California consistently ranks near the bottom of state business environment assessments, typically placing around 48th position, while Texas ranks considerably higher, usually in the middle tier around 13th place. These rankings aggregate multiple factors including tax burden, regulatory complexity, energy costs, and labor expenses, all elements that collectively shape where companies choose to invest. Energy represents another substantial cost difference between the two states. Industrial electricity rates in California's Central Valley exceed national averages significantly, and water costs for agricultural processing have risen steadily as the state manages competing demands on limited water resources. Food manufacturing facilities consume both electricity and water in large quantities, making these utilities a significant ongoing operational expense that affects competitiveness. Labor costs also play a role, though in more complex ways than simple wage comparisons might suggest. California's minimum wage increases, and overtime regulations raise the baseline cost of staffing manufacturing operations. For companies employing hundreds of workers across multiple shifts operating 24 hours daily, these regulatory differences translate into measurable expense variations between states. The long-term milk supply outlook in California also factored into the decision as the state's dairy industry faces its own challenges. From a purely financial perspective, the decision to invest nearly $1 billion in a new Texas facility rather than retrofit aging California infrastructure follows clear economic logic. Lower operating costs, eliminated tax obligations, access to abundant local milk supplies, and a more favorable regulatory environment create conditions where the same production volume generates higher profit margins. This calculus doesn't necessarily reflect poorly on California's policy choices. States make different trade-offs between tax revenue for public services, worker protections, environmental standards, and business costs. But for individual companies making investment decisions, these trade-offs have concrete consequences that ripple through communities when facilities close. Meanwhile, the cheese itself will continue flowing to pizza ovens nationwide, now routed through Leprino's remaining facilities in Colorado, Michigan, New Mexico, New York, and the new Lubbock plant. Consumers purchasing frozen pizzas, Hot Pockets, or ordering from major chains are unlikely to detect any difference in the mozzarella they receive. The company's technical specifications ensure consistency regardless of which facility produces any particular batch. But this geographic shift carries implications beyond product consistency. As manufacturing concentrates in states with lower operating costs, regions that previously hosted these operations lose not just jobs, but also the broader economic activity those jobs supported. The transition illustrates how corporate decisions made according to rational business logic can fundamentally alter regional economic prospects. If you found this analysis valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more comprehensive coverage of economic and policy developments. What do you think this shift from California to Texas reveals about American manufacturing more broadly? Share your perspective in the comments section. When a single company controls such a substantial share of a basic food ingredient, its operational decisions carry weight far beyond factory walls. The movement of cheese production from California to Texas reflects economic forces that are reshaping American manufacturing across multiple industries. Jobs relocate, communities adjust, and supply chains reorganize, all driven by state-level policy differences that create varying costs for the same productive activity. Whether this represents an efficient market response or a troubling concentration of economic power in fewer geographic locations remains an open question deserving continued attention as these trends accelerate across American manufacturing.